Hi there, welcome to the latest edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast, which is brought to you by fans for fans, and where the content is absolutely free. It is a bonus episode of, I say it's a bonus, we're doing them every week now. I think we've passed the point of it being a bonus. It's part of the schedule now. We're doing the preview for the Ross County game tomorrow. I'm your host, I'm Colin Armstrong. As I say to you every week, guys, it's not just the pod here we have here at Gersnet. We've got the forums, there's the website, articles, all that kind of stuff. Get yourself on there. There's a history archive on the website as well. So plenty to get involved in, so get yourself on there when you can. If you like what we do here, we would ask you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've got over 5,000 now, so going well. Put the word out there on social media. Let people know that we're here and what we're doing. I'll bring in my guest, and it's Stewart Weir. It's Cagney and Lacey tonight, as Frankie put out on Twitter earlier on.
Yes, I must admit I did have a good chuckle at that.
I didn't.
Yeah. Well, obviously you must have been Cagney then. But no, it was yes. There are a number of double acts out there that have been compared to Laurel and Hardy, now Cagney and Lacey. Yeah. I only await to see what happens with the next one as well. But they seem to be good combinations.
It just annoys me that I'm always the wee fat one, you know what I mean? But there we go. Whatever partnership it is, I get the wee fat one.
I'll be Abbott and you'll be Costello then.
Along those lines, yeah. Right, sure. I thought we would obviously look at the Ross County game tomorrow, but a couple of things I think we need to talk about before we go on to that. The Livingston game on Wednesday, and there's been a bit of movement in the transfer market. A couple of comings and goings at Ibrox that we'll talk to. So Wednesday night against Livingston, a horrible night, by the way. I mean, it's as bad a night as I can remember at Ibrox. I said this on the immediate sort of post-match show with Eck afterwards. I mean, I'm in the Govan rear, and it was literally raining up there. It was swirling so bad that even being on the top tier of the Govan stand, you were still getting soaked. So, I mean, that added to it being a horrible night. The fact that Rangers were fairly down to the bare bones in terms of the squad and the team that they had to select from. And the opposition as well, they're just a team that I always feel are a bit stuffy and they're never really great encounters, I don't think. So I think the feeling from a lot of people going into the game, certainly that's what me and Eck were sort of talking about before it on the show, was it didn't feel like it was going to be a classic. It was a night for just getting the job done, and that's what we've done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if you look at Scottish football in general, in the top flight even, you have teams that will have a go at you, which you can literally count on one hand, and you've got those that will sit in, make themselves difficult to beat. You have to break them down. They're not particularly great to watch. And as you say, that kind of spectacle added to the elements which were horrible. It was never going to be an easy night. The Rangers produced a winning performance and took 3 points. That ultimately is your goal at the start of the game, and Rangers delivered. The bits in between you can forget about. Yeah. I think it's a case of just look at the score, the scoreline, who scored, how the goal came about, and part that one and move on to the next game.
I mean, I'm starting to get the feeling, I don't know how you feel, Stuart, when it comes to Gio's style. I'm starting to sense there's a wee bit of Walter Smith in him. It's very much 1-0 will do, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that was the thing about Walter Smith. I mean, he'd won so many trophies for us, and a hugely successful manager. But there was times, especially in the winter, when you were sitting watching games like, oh, this is a hard watch. You just got the job done and moved on to the following week. And I'm getting that sense for Gio. He's very pragmatic, and as I said, 1-0 will do, and it felt like that on Wednesday.
I think, to be honest, I think if you look at who he's played under, as a player, and who his coaches have been at different times in his career, I think you'd have to say, Dick Advocaat as well was quite pragmatic on occasions. And again, if one's going to be enough, that's what you take. You just make sure you get that one. I go back to Graham Souness. Graham Souness was a great advocate. If you score one goal and keep a clean sheet, you've won the game. And sometimes that's as good as it's going to get. Again, it's easy to be critical, and you might be looking for better, but a couple of seasons ago, that would have been a game that Rangers would have drawn or even lost at home. So there is progress, and and it continues. It started under Steven Gerrard, and it's continuing under Giovanni van Bronckhorst.
Now, there was a few talking points, that the guys that came in that really didn't, stake a major claim in terms of getting more game time, like Seaton and Scott Wright. And I didn't think Scott Wright played particularly bad, but I felt that the crowd sort of turned against him a wee bit, and then he started, rather than just calming down and getting on with it, he started chasing things a wee bit, and then his decision making went out the window, and it started to get worse from there on in. So you kind of felt for those guys that it was their opportunity to stake a claim, and they never really took it.
Just on the subject of Wright, here's a guy who, if you like, is a bit part player. On occasions there's been responsibility put on his shoulders. Wednesday night was such a night. But you look at who he individually and single-handedly is trying to replace. You're looking at somebody who's doing Ryan Kent's job, Joe Aribo's job, and even Hadji's job to try and be creative. And that's a big ask. That's a difficult one at any time, but especially difficult, given the level of the opposition as well, who would prefer not to see you play and not give you any chances to play than actually open up and try and attack you. So I get what you're saying there. I don't think it was Wright's worst game, but I think it was extremely difficult circumstances for him.
I also think that, your sort of players that come in, the guys that aren't, going to start every week, if they come in and the rest of the team is largely the same, they're playing with 10 other better players. When the team's down to the bare bones, and you're basically playing a lot of the guys that are sort of second choice in each position, then I think it's harder for them. I thought Alex Lowry done well, but I wanted to talk about the penalty claim, because it seems to have morphed into something that it isn't. You know what I mean? I think it's quite clear that it hits him in the sort of chest area here, and Twitter, the usual meltdown, definite penalty, he should have been sent off, Hun referee, all that shite. And I've said this a few times now, but this sort of faux controversy, and it's every game now, you know what I mean? It's boring. It really does. You start to think, just see something for what it is instead of trying to find something controversial.
But I think ultimately they're assisted greatly by the incompetency and the mediocrity of the officials that are in the Scottish game just now. Whereas you might say, well, a decent referee would never let that, never award that penalty. Your heart is in your mouth sometimes when you see something like that, just because you really do not know what's coming next from some referees. And, again, it never fails to amuse me, and amuses me greatly when you have slow-mos and freeze frames of so-called penalty decisions, and even when it's hitting the guy in the chest and his arms are behind his back, it still has to be a penalty simply because you want it to be a penalty. Well, it doesn't work that way. And to be honest, I would agree with you. I thought it was one of these ones where, on another occasion, if Rangers were 4-0 up, nobody would have bothered with that. But the fact that it was 1-0 and Rangers, squeezed through, it made it a big event and a big decision. But there wasn't any big decision in it. It wasn't a penalty, and hence the reason you could pick up your morning papers and read that.
Can I move on to the Livingston game without talking about Arfield's goal? The more I see it, the more impressed I'm with. I genuinely think it's one of those goals that we'll look back on in years to come and think that was just a wonderful sort of piece of intuition. It was just to be so quick-minded to do it, and the technique to carry it out. Because he's not a million miles away from Borna when the cross comes in, and the ball's kind of close to him. And just to have that sort of presence of mind, just to realise where the goalkeeper was, and just dink it with outside the sort of his right foot and over the keeper. I think if a Brazilian does that, I think if Messi does that, I think if a Dutch player does that, we're all talking about, oh, look at that, that's superb. So I think Scott Arfield deserves the same sort of praise. But I genuinely, I think that's the best goal I've seen at Ibrox since the night I was at the Braga game. Joe Aribo's goal that night. I just thought it was a brilliant piece of skill. I really did.
I think every player has got a goal like that in them. If you like, if all the sort of planets align, if your kind of intuition and your inspiration and your kind of insight they all line up, then you can create a goal like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you don't get the bounce of the ball, or sometimes you just come off your foot the wrong way. But again, you look at that goal, and there's a bit of it. You say, well, the first time you see it was it deflected off him, or he was lucky to get that touch on it. It's only when you actually see it maybe once or twice you actually see, that's entirely what he was trying to do. And it was, to be honest, Colin, it was going to take something like that on Wednesday night to get a breakthrough. It was going to take something maybe a bit different, or a bit freakish to actually put Rangers in the lead. Once he got the goal, they managed to hold on to it. But fair play to Arfield. I noticed, I think it was, there were several people, I think you might have been amongst them, even before half time, was get Arfield on, or get Arfield more.
That's my mantra pretty much every week.
Even when Rangers are not playing, you're still asking for Arfield to get on. But it's I think there are certain individuals that can make a difference, and he's certainly one of them.
It was interesting as well today that Gio was asked at the press conference about comings and goings, and which we'll come on to talk about. But he was also asked about Arfield, and he does seem to be rejuvenated under Gio, because it kind of fell out of things under Gerrard. Lundstrom was getting a wee bit more game time, and Arfield was, sort of basically sub most games and not getting a huge amount of game time. And round about that time, I was seeing a lot of comments from Rangers fans on social media and stuff saying, they wouldn't be that bothered if it was Arfield's last season and he would go at the end of the season, his contract's up in the summer. But I think since Van Bronckhorst has arrived, we've seen what the best of Scott Arfield can produce, and I thought it was really good today to hear Van Bronckhorst saying that he's looking to give him a deal beyond the summer, because I think he's still got a lot to offer.
Players are, even if you're a young player and you might have that element of inconsistency, if you're getting a bit older, sometimes fatigue sets in and it's difficult for you to kick on game after game after game. I think Scott Arfield became a bit, he was kind of pushed to the fringes a wee bit under Steven Gerrard for whatever reason. I'm not quite sure. But again, it might be a difference here. You got a new manager coming in. The players' sort of attitude might just change. He might not be aware of it, but it might just change. His attitude, own personal attitude, might just change, just to say, well, I'm going to make a go of this again. All of a sudden, he adds an extra 5% on his game, which might be all the difference needed between sitting on the bench and actually getting game time. And I do think that Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, even though he played with some exceptional players and was an exceptional player himself, equally, I think he understands that sometimes you need guys that do specific jobs and will play specific parts and roles to get you wins and get the team winning. And I think he sees that in Scott Arfield. I think he can trust Scott Arfield to do a particular job, be it coming off the bench or starting games. And to that end, I think, if the manager is looking to say, yeah, we'll extend your contract or extend your stay here, that can only be good for Scott Arfield as well, and maybe take him on to, yet another level. That he's come round as well and said, that he's finished with international football. Again, that's all part of maybe his thought process, that he's at a certain age where, does he really need to be jetting, 4,000 miles across the Atlantic to play in games for Canada or be a squad player for Canada? Even the travels, takes it out of you. So I think maybe he's decided this is a time in his career where if he is going to put the extra effort in for Rangers, he's got to make sacrifices. The sacrifice being that he doesn't play for Canada. And again, that's maybe why you're seeing a better and maybe a different Scott Arfield of late.
On to the sort of comings and goings. Obviously, the window closes on Monday. So Amad Diallo signed on, I think it was Wednesday, can't remember. On loan from Manchester United. I don't think there was any option to buy in this one, Stuart, considering I think Man United spent 30 million on him. But that alone, the fact that they're looking to loan him to a club where there would be no option to buy would suggest to me that Man United do see a future for the boy at Man United. A player of that calibre, a £30 million player coming to Rangers, even if it is only for 6 months or whatever. I mean, obviously, anything could happen. The move might not work out or whatever, but a good bit of business it would seem, and you would hope he would add that wee touch of creativity, because I do feel of late, talking about that pragmatism, we have looked like we've needed a wee extra spark at times, and hopefully he'll be the guy to provide it.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of these weeks that you'll look back on and think to yourself that, you never realised there were as many African football experts, Serie A experts, Manchester United youth team experts, out there until somebody arrives in Glasgow to sign for Rangers. Listen, Manchester United spent all that money on potential. There is a very good player there, but ultimately you're spending that amount of money on the potential of that player becoming even better and establishing themselves. I think the fact that United have allowed him to, come to Glasgow, they're obviously looking for him to get game time, but they're looking for him to be playing matches at a certain level as well and have a certain level of involvement. I don't think United would have released him or allowed him to come to Glasgow unless there was a kind of a guarantee that he will be more than just somebody who's occasionally called off the bench. I think United will be stipulating that if they allow him to come to Rangers, then it will be a case of we want to see this player play because he needs to develop as well as a player. So it's a deal that will, looks to for Rangers and for Manchester United, they'll be taking different things out of it. The player will be taking something else out of it as well. Again, trying to make his mark so that when he does go back to Old Trafford, and he will go back to Old Trafford, let's not kid ourselves. When he goes back to Old Trafford, he's got something on his showreel to show the manager and say, this is what I did whilst I was in Glasgow. And what better way, to impress a manager or an incoming manager or whoever might be in charge at Old Trafford than maybe with a League Cup winners' medal.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He also linked with James McAtee. He's across the road at City. Apparently there's a strong connection with Gio. He worked with the City group at some point. Can you see that one happening at all? I mean, apparently he's highly rated. I read today, I think it was in the Athletic, that City actually Pep Guardiola doesn't want him to go out on loan. He wants him to sort of, try and break into the first team there, but the boy himself is looking for game time. So you think there's any sort of traction in that one? Sorry,
I do. I think there actually might be, to use your word there, traction in a number of these kind of deals. I think the reason that you're seeing that Rangers are going for loan players, obviously the deals are not there that Rangers maybe tried to cultivate or try to conclude in terms of actually spending money and bringing players in on transfers and on contracts. I think what you're seeing just now is them giving themselves every opportunity to win the league by bringing in players that are going to maybe have some kind of effectiveness in the actual team. So the fact that Rangers have brought one guy in and are looking at another, it wouldn't surprise me maybe if there's another one over and above that, or maybe even another couple, because I think they're trying to give themselves a bit more depth to the squad. I think on Wednesday night, when it showed anything, okay, maybe those were exceptional circumstances, given that you had players on international duty and league matches still taking place, and of course you had quite a few players out injured as well. But I think you actually saw Rangers as threadbare as you've seen them for some considerable time.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can take that risk. I think if the transfer window's open just now, I think you're better trying to augment your squad and what you've got, rather than saying, well, everybody will come back. A lot of guys don't come back. They maybe not come back to form. They might not come back, fit and healthy again. So I think you've got to try and give yourself as much opportunity as possible by bolstering your squad. And at least, and the other thing is giving yourself some competition for places. If Rangers are going out there and signing loan players, there may be one or two players actually within the current squad that are needing that kick up the backside just to spur them on and kick on for the rest of the season, rather than getting into this sort of mindset of I'm a first team player. Well, you're a first team player. You might be a first team squad player. You might be one of the kind of the 13 or 15 or 18. Yes, but if all of a sudden there's another 2 or 3 guys waiting in the wings, you might need to give a wee bit more just to guarantee yourself a place in the bench even on a Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a few supporters, again, looking and stuff on social media and that, supporters complaining that it's just loan deals and stuff like that. But I tend to find January, that's what we do. We do our main business in the summer, and then we assess the squad in the January window and just get what we need to top it up and get us over the line. I'm not saying that we don't get permanent deals in January, but I find January is a window where there's a lot more loan deals as clubs just sort of get those extra players in that they think they need. But in terms of the going outs, there was one sort of exit this week, Stewart. Bacuna's left his undisclosed fee, although I think it's around 600k down to Birmingham City. Yeah, you would have to say, I mean, there was fleeting wee glimpses of what he could be, but it's just no worked. And I kind of wonder if it's maybe the player himself that's sort of pushed for this move because he's lack of game time.
He's come in under one manager and suddenly found himself playing under another. And, you're trying to do different things. You're trying to impress the guy who's actually brought you to Glasgow, brought you to Rangers. You're trying to impress him 1 minute, and then the next minute, you might be winning the previous manager over, and all of a sudden you're starting from scratch again. And if your mind and your heart isn't really in it, and you're asking yourself, what am I actually doing here? Because I've come here and I haven't made any progress whatsoever. Is it time for me to move? I don't think anybody could say, well, that was a waste of time or that was a waste of money, because that wasn't the deal that was constructed last summer. And just going on to the transfers, or going back to the transfers there, I think January transfers, you're signing guys on these kind of odd 3.5-year contracts. What that actually means is if the guy's holding out in the summer and you've only got 6 months left of the contract, it almost means that there's 2 windows there that he can move in. His deal might be cut short that summer simply because that unless you sell him then, you're not going to get anything for him sort of come the January window. So I think that's maybe why they've held out and thought to themselves, well, unless we get a deal that we really want, there's no point in spending any money. People will say, well, do they have the money? I think they probably do, but again, it's when you spend that money, and if you're keeping your powder dry for the summer, that's all well and good. I still think you have to think that if you've got a certain amount of money in the bank just now, you might have an even bigger pot of money in the bank if you win this league title this season. And I think you might just see over the next couple of days the penny dropping that if we're going to be successful this season, then we'll need to spend money.
On to the game tomorrow, Stuart. You were talking there about Scott Arfield flying 4,000 miles to sit on the bench and stuff like that. Well, we're missing Alfredo Morelos tomorrow. He's away with Colombia. He's not even in the squad tonight. So, I mean, stuff like that's really frustrating. So, obviously, Morelos is out. Hadji's out for the rest of the season. Davis and Hollander are still out for tomorrow. Ryan Kent and Joe Aribo, he's obviously back. And Amad Diallo will be in the squad. So, I mean, it doesn't feel like we're quite as threadbare as we were on Wednesday, but I would still say there's a lack of depth in that squad. You know, in terms of the starting 11, you would get a team out that you would think would do the job. But if you're having to rely on the subs coming on, then you know there's not that same sort of strength and depth that there would be if some of these guys were with us.
Yeah, I think you're also looking at a team that if Livingston were going to dig in at Ibrox because they were away from home, and that's what you do at Ibrox, you're also looking at a team tomorrow that are at home and therefore have a bit more of support around them and have a history and a record of making it difficult for Rangers. You know, people will say, "Oh, well, what about this game and what about that game?" Rangers scored 3 and 4 and were quite comfortable. I think the majority of Rangers fans will be thinking to themselves, "This is a game you just want to go up there, win it again. One goal might be enough. Take the 3 points and get back in the bus and get back yourself back down the road."
3 points down the road, aye.
And unscathed, because it has been difficult there in the past. I mean, they'll be well drilled, they'll be well, managed in terms of what the job is that they have to do. But I think you're right. I think that Rangers have still got a starting 11 at least that should have job done before you start having to look to anybody on the bench.
Ryan Jack as well. You know, he came back on Wednesday night there. I mean, I don't know how many times we've been here with Ryan Jack saying Ryan Jack's back, but you're kind of hoping. I mean, he came on, he done pretty well. You're hoping that this is the time that his injuries are behind him, and because I'm generally starting to fear for the guy. You know what I mean? It just seems whenever he comes back, he breaks down, and you just start to fear about his long-term future. But you're hoping it would be really good if this was him now, because you know we're in the January window, we're making new signings. If we get a fit and firing Ryan Jack back now for the run-in, that is almost like a new signing. You know what I mean? Because he's so integral to the team when he plays. Yeah, no,
I would agree with you there. I think sometimes the best sight or the best arrival is a guy that actually starts turning up every day for training. You know, that you've already got in your squad, rather than somebody that just knew through the door. He's had a real tough time of late, because as you say, you know, he puts the work in, and he's put a hell of a lot of work in. And I don't think either under Van Bronckhorst or under Steven Gerrard, I don't think he's ever been rushed back. I think the big thing is he's been given time to actually prove his fitness and make sure in his own mind that he's happy with the situation. But it just hasn't worked out for him so far. Hopefully, touch wood. As I would say with any player, if you're out for that length of time and you put the work in to come back, I hope he gets a run of games just to establish himself again. But he would be a useful guy to have over the last 5 months of this season.
And you feel for him as well, because obviously he missed out in the Euros as well, and he missed a fair chunk. Although he did contribute to 55, you know, he played a fair amount of games, enough to get a medal and all that kind of thing. He did miss a fair chunk. So it feels like two of the biggest things of his career. You know, the injury has struck just at that point. So yeah, it would be good. I think it'd be great to see him back in that team and doing the business for us, because he's a great player.
The fact that you're actually talking about him almost, you know, as the kind of forgotten one, actually tells you exactly where he is career-wise and in this squad currently. You know what I mean? He's been unlucky with injuries, but it's been a hell of a drag for the guy. You know, you're thinking, you know, I had to sit down and actually look to see when he last had a decent run of games with Rangers, and you know, time moves on, and you forget actually, you know, as you say, last summer he wasn't part of the Scotland setup because of that, and he'd missed so much of last season at different times as well. He'll be a handy guy to have a fit for the rest of the season. And the thing is, if it doesn't work out for him, dare I say it, Rangers have actually played without him for such a long time. Yeah. He's not actually going to be. He will be missed, but he's not going to be missed to the same extent if he actually played the last 40 league matches.
Yeah, we've learned to live without him, really, haven't we? That's the thing.
And it's a sad thing. It's a sad thing, career-wise for him as well. But he's in a position there where he's just not had that. And and not over-egging it or dwelling on it, but you start to think back to other Rangers players who started to miss games and thereafter never was really the same player again, and just their career just drifted away, or they played for a bit and then suddenly succumbed to whatever injuries you had. I touch wood, it doesn't go this far, but I remember Alan McLaren and having to sit in the wee sort of ante-room just at Ibrox there when he came in, and Walter gave his Friday press conference. He said, if you just wait there a minute, boys, I've got somebody else coming in. And it was McLaren that came in, and that was him. Basically, he said he tried everything, and that was his career at an end. And he just broke down, and it ended up, it was just myself and Jim Black, who was at the Sun at the time. The two of us sat for about, a good 40 minutes, hour with him, just talking to him, talking things through, and trying to emphasise with him that even at this low point, he had a career that other people could only dream about.
Yeah.
And it's I hope it doesn't come to that, with any player, but you almost become the forgotten man, and to try and re-establish yourself again, he could play for the next season and people will still be referring back to all the time that he missed.
Yeah, I mean, it has. I mean, I would say for the last sort of year and a bit, it's been an issue with him. I would say since he's arrived at Rangers, I've always viewed him as a sort of 7-8 games in, 3-4 out type of player. And then recently, before he's been out, the amount of games that he's playing was coming down, and the amount of games he was missing, the gap was creeping up. But hopefully this is a turning point. I've got the shirt up there where he scored twice at Ross County, so hopefully that's an omen for us getting a result tomorrow, and hopefully it's an omen for him himself.
There's people texting in saying they don't think very much of your wardrobe. You seem to be minus a few doors. Just mentioning players. I mean, I remember when Ian Ferguson signed for big money under Graham Souness, and he took an eternity to get going because he was troubled by various injuries, and it started off as I think it started off with his instep, then moved to his ankle, then his ankle became his calf, then his shin, then his knee, then his thigh.
Did he not have a weird virus as well at one point, Ian Ferguson?
What he actually had was a problem. I think it was a stomach muscle, and he was clowning about in goals one day, and it just went twang. And once that was repaired, then that was him fine, and he became almost indestructible. You looked at a guy who just couldn't get a start for Rangers, to suddenly being a guy who was back being fully fit, was one of the first names down in the team sheet for the best part of a decade.
Obviously, a big game coming up on Wednesday night. Stuart, we're over the road to that mob across the road. So we've got the 12:30 kick-off tomorrow. So vital that Rangers get 3 points. One, it puts a wee bit of pressure on Celtic in their game in the afternoon. And two, it ensures we're going over the road on Wednesday night with the 4 points at least. And that gives you something to defend. If we come away with a draw, we've maintained that 4 points. If we get the win, we've extended it. But if we go in there with less than the 4 points, it becomes tight.
I mean, it's strange times we live in, and listen, people will say, and they're trying to again cultivate stories about this game being sold. We're into February and they're only playing this game and all the rest of it. Listen, there've been other seasons where you've had games, that haven't come around, Old Firm games for various reasons. I go back, you go back to the year when Diana was killed. That Sunday there was supposed to be an Old Firm game that Sunday, and again, ultimately for me that proved one of the turning points that season, because it turned into a game that Celtic had, and it was supposed to be at Celtic Park. The game was called off. and all of a sudden that gave them that gave Celtic an advantage later on in the season. I think it's going to be strange next week anyway, because it's a midweek game. Yeah. It's almost like everything has been governed by you must play. You must play on weekends. I remember several occasions when Rangers went to Celtic Park and come back with great victories. And again, when there was a lot riding on it for Celtic to actually make a mark and make a statement, and Rangers come away with a win. I was thinking, I was just looking at something the other day there, and it was when Rangers went 12 points clear when Rod Wallace scored the only goal, and that was about this time of year as well. It was a big difference then between hoping to maintain your 4-point lead, or maybe increase that. 4 points, the difference between 4 points and 12 is rather sizable. But again, it's one of these games that if you get a result and a performance at this time of the season, it can mean so much to you, because all of a sudden there's no way for the opposition to go. They can't go into the transfer market and strengthen. They can't bring in new players. They maybe even can't change their starting lineup. So there's a lot riding on these two games. But then again, I suppose if you play for Rangers, every 2 games or every 3 games are always important.
Every game's a cup final, as they say. Right, final sort of talking point tonight, Stuart. I was looking at Ross County and their sort of form at the moment. They're lying 9th in the form table. They've won 2 of their last 6 games. They've lost 3 of those and drawn 1. They have had a wee sort of rejuvenation recently. Malcolm Mackay did sort of. There was a time there when they were really struggling, but it seems that they've got a wee sort of running results and have picked up. And I always feel, when you look at the games earlier on this season, I felt we played really well up at Dingwall the last time, but we just couldn't shake them off. We were 1-0 up, 2-0 up, then it was 2-1, 3-1 up, then 3-2. And the game at Ibrox, I can remember saying on the preview show, I think it was Ross that was on that night, because that was in the middle of the time where we were going behind every game. We were conceding the first goal every game. And I was like, surely tomorrow's the day that we don't go behind. And lo and behold, like 2 minutes in, Ross County go 1-0 up. And we won that game 4-2. But again, it was comfortable, but, not as comfortable as it probably should have been. And it's just that feeling that Ross County, even though we always seem to beat them, they're always quite tricky games.
These are, from a Ross County perspective, this is a free hit for them, isn't it? If they get anything from this game, this is a bit of a Brucey bonus that they didn't expect, and it's a big point or a big 3 points. You never know, but it'd be such a sizable bonus and boost for them, given where they are in the table, and also the fact that they've taken it off somebody like Rangers. So they'll really, they've got absolutely nothing to lose in this game. I think this is a game where Rangers need to contain them. Rangers need to play with a bit of authority, and they need to take the chances that come their way, so that they're not missing, chances galore and suddenly getting desperate again. I think if Rangers score early, they might score a couple early. Ideally, that's what they do. But I think, again, Rangers don't want this to be dragging on into 0-0 at half time, or chasing a game late on when they should have won it in the first 20 minutes. Again, all in all, I think Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has been pretty good. I mean, there's been a real turnaround, a real transformation in Rangers, given the fact that almost every game under Steven Gerrard, they went a goal behind and ended up chasing their tails, to actually being in a situation where, well, if we don't score, we just make sure the opposition don't score either. Not to make things too difficult for ourselves. All in all, I think, Rangers will win this one, whether it's a goal or 5 goals. Who knows? Then again, who cares? The 3 points are the thing that's important.
This is true. Defensively, I feel confident. I must admit, it's just at the other end of the park at the moment. We'll have enough. But obviously, we've got Kent back tomorrow. You would imagine Roof would start. Aribo's back in the team, so hopefully all will be well. Right, Stuart, I think that's just about us for tonight. So a big thanks to Stuart for his contribution there. Great stuff as always. We were live tonight, as we always are, on the Friday and the Sunday nights, always live. But the pod is available to download and stream on a variety of platforms from tomorrow, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Spotify, all your usual places, guys. We'll have a show out on Sunday night to cover the game tomorrow. I believe Ross is hosting that one, so join him at 9:30 on Sunday. In the meantime, get yourself onto the Gersnet website and forums at www.gersnet.co.uk. Until the next time, guys, bye for now.